Joining me now is Carol Leonnig, investigative reporter for The Washington Post. Good morning, Carol. Thank you for being here. And I want to refer you to your own tweet from yesterday. And you tweeted this. You tweeted, people close to Epstein fear he was murdered. As Epstein told authorities, someone tried to kill him in a previous incident weeks earlier. He was described as being in good spirits in recent days. So 2 questions for you. Question number 1, I want you to detail a little bit more about this allegation, because what you're referring to here is that people close to Epstein think the previous incident, which we were also told was an alleged suicide, was an attempt on his life. That's number 1. And then number 2, this is a ridiculous question, and I apologize to having to ask you. You're a professional. I'm so sorry to have to ask you this. But do the people close to Epstein who fear that he was murdered think the Clintons somehow pulled off a hit against Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, let's take those questions one by one, Joy. Thank you for all your preface. First off, the incident July 23rd in the prison in New York, AMCC, which many people now compare to Abu Ghraib because it's so stressful and disorganized and chaotic. It's not exactly a great place to be. People who've been in Guantanamo say that they'd prefer Guantanamo over at the MCC. That's how scary it is and disorganized. That incident was one in which Jeffrey Epstein was found on the floor, semi-conscious, and he claimed he believed he'd been assaulted. There were neck marks. His roommate at the time said, "I found him like this," and Epstein insisted he did not try to kill himself. We don't know the answer about what happened because the MCC and the Department of Justice haven't answered the question, what did your probe back then discern? What did you find had actually happened? All we do know is that he was put on suicide watch for a while, and as my great colleagues at the Washington Post have reported, he was taken off suicide watch a few days before he was found dead. And the second piece of your question, forgive me, I'm going to it quickly, the people close to Epstein don't have any theories about what happened. They have the fear that all smart people who watch prison deaths unfold have, which is, this guy had a lot of secrets. Did anybody want him dead? This guy is accused of being a rampant serial pedophile. Those people also end up dead in prisons often. Was he attacked? He claimed that he was attacked July 23rd. We don't know the answers to those questions, but the Justice Department says they're going to find out.
So let me ask you another question about this facility. Who was in charge of it? For instance, if it was the Justice Department directly supervisory over MCC, who supervises it?
The Department of Justice is ultimately the of this property. It's supervised by the Bureau of Prisons. It's a federal facility. And, the Attorney General, who spoke on Saturday several times about his concern about this, is ultimately the supervisor of this facility. Mm-hmm. Quite removed, but it's his responsibility.
Well, let's talk about this facility itself. For those who have not seen inside it, you just described it as, people who've been in there said it's quite frightening. But here is what a former inmate there had to say about it in the New York Post. Quote, in this person's view, it would have been impossible to hang oneself inside of these jails. Between the floor and the ceiling is like 8 or 9 feet. There's no way for you to connect to anything. You have sheets, but they're paper level, not strong enough. He was 200 pounds. It would never happen. Could he have done it from the bed? No, sir. There's a steel frame, but you can't move it. There's no light fixture. There's no bars. And there's a cop at the door about every 9 minutes, whether you're on suicide watch or not. Do you know the inside of this facility well enough to know if it would be physically possible for somebody to hang themselves inside one of these cells?
Absolutely not. I am not an expert on this facility. I believe that there are a lot of protections to prevent this kind of thing from happening, but here it has happened. We just don't know enough yet to say how it happened, just as we still don't know 2 weeks later what happened on July 23rd. I think that, it's scary and worrisome for conspiracy theorists to spread rumors about what coulda, shoulda, maybe did happen. But it is reasonable to ask the question, What do we know? What do the tapes show? When was the last time somebody saw him alive? And ultimately, what happened July 23rd? If he tried to kill himself on July 23rd, then his apparent suicide makes a lot more sense to me.
And here's the question about that, because I want to zero in on the July 23rd incident as well. If someone as high profile, I know of a few police officers. I have a godbrother who is a former cop. I know a few police officers. I don't know everything about policing, obviously, and I have one relative who used to work in Rikers Island. My understanding is that if someone exhibits suicidal ideation and they attempt to actually hurt themselves, they would then be on suicide watch, and it wouldn't be brief. They would be on an extended suicide watch. There would be constant monitoring of that person. Does it read as logical to you that someone this famous, who is being accused of predation on children, which normally can lead to violence against you in prison, right? These are the people who are targeted, people who allegedly molest kids. Would it make sense to you to take someone like that, who's that high profile, off suicide watch?
No. I mean, everything about this, Joy, is so odd. The July 23rd incident is a red flag. The fact that he was in a cell with a roommate who is about 4 times his size and is accused of a former police officer who's accused of killing 4 people, the fact that that's his roommate is also odd. Again, that's back to July 23rd. I don't understand how they run the prison. I just know these things sort of stand out as bizarre. And now he's dead. And honestly, for his victims, you know, what in the world should they feel at this moment? They've been waiting for the day when they could face him in court and say, this is what you did to me, this is what you did to my friends, and now we're going to see you pay for that if indeed you are convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's gone for them now. As well, what about all the things he knew based on the unsealed records on Friday? What about all the things he knew about his co-conspirators? Important or not important people? That information is gone.
Right. And the challenge I think that I'm having, and I'm just going to go ahead and, you know, cop to my skepticism on this, is that now the one person who we, in theory, must wait for answers from is William Barr. And William Barr's record, just to be candid, doesn't seem to denote somebody who's willing to tell truths that hurt Donald Trump or that could make Donald Trump uncomfortable or unhappy. He seems to want to always help Donald Trump. And Jeffrey Epstein, you know, like it or not, sorry, Trump fans, he was a threat to Donald Trump, even just because it was embarrassing, the fact that he had these connections to him. Mr. Barr